What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Monday, August 21st. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, we're going to be getting into some F1 fantasy with a Dutch Grand Prix preview. The summer break is officially over, and it's time to get back into our F1 fantasy teams. We're going to do a little Belgian Grand Prix review. Then we're going to get right into the action with some chip strategies, some price rises. So check those time codes out in the episode below. If you don't have time to watch the entire episode, please look at those timestamps. That way you can click around and see what you want to catch up on. But we're going to get right into it here with the Belgian Grand Prix review. Just a little episode content there, or what we're going to be getting into: fantasy standings, driver of the week, price changes, preview, weekend schedule, weather, rest of season strategy, transfers, and then some upcoming races. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter at UN or UOut, and like and subscribe to the channel below. So Belgian Grand Prix seems so long ago, a few weeks ago. Max Verstappen kind of had a parade. He did take a gearbox penalty, so when he won qualifying, he did start the race in sixth. There was a sprint in between all of this. It was pretty wacky. Pierre Gasly getting up there in the standings, but it was a strange weekend. A lot of people trying to get on the McLarens who performed inadequately. Oscar Piastri getting a DNF, so that hurt a lot. But the guys that went 3 times DRS boost, it was a tough weekend for them, as Sergio Perez also only got 7 points, despite Max Verstappen coming through for our F1 fantasy teams with another immaculate performance. Facts and stats here for the Belgian Grand Prix. Optimal team was Red Bull, Mercedes, Verstappen, Russell, Ocon, Albon, and Hulkenberg with 369 points. Positions gained, a little inflated because it was a sprint weekend, obviously. Zhou Guanyu, 8. Ocon 6, Magnussen, Bottas, Hulkenberg, and Verstappen with 5. Overtakes was Albon with 18, Ocon 16, and George Russell with 12. And the fastest pit stop on Sunday, Ferrari with 10, Red Bull 5, AlphaTauri 3. Moving over here to driver fantasy points, they are ordered by PPR for the season, but just want to kind of highlight this points per race for the last 3. George Russell getting up there with 24.3. Lando Norris still there with 27.3. Verstappen just coming through. Perez 24 points, so it has slipped a little bit from his season average, but he's doing okay. He's sticking around in my team, at least for right now. I'm still top 8,300 in the world right now. So hoping that he can come through a little bit stronger for our lineups. Hopefully no DNFs for Perez or Oscar Piastri this weekend. Moving on to the bottom 10 now here. Pierre Gasly came through with 17 points in Belgium after a pretty dismal couple of weeks there for the Alpine team, especially after their changes at the top there. Oscar Piastri, his momentum was a little bit halted with his -7 in Belgium, but it's still 10.3 points per race over the last 3. So strong value for money there. Constructors, kind of same old. Red Bull, very strong. The only thing hampering them was Perez's DNF. So that kind of cost them from having a fantastic weekend in the sprint, but still came out on top with 80 points. Aston Martin outperforming McLaren in Spa was a surprise. Some of the teams that held on to Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Aston Martin as their constructor came through. The points were there, and they got a little boost before the summer break. Moving on here, driver of the day was George Russell. He was not actually driver of the day according to F1, but he was for me. Just an overall strong weekend. He's now gained positions in 8 of his last 9 races, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is impressive compared to the rest of the field. And his 24.3 points per race over the last 3 races is 4th on the grid, only trailing Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton. 12 overtakes, 10 positions gained, 28 total fantasy points for George Russell, who has struggled in the second year with Mercedes, but hopefully is getting back into that consistent top 5 and possibly becoming an option for our F1 fantasy teams, considering he is a little bit cheaper than Sergio Perez. Price changes here. There were 12 driver price changes to rise and 2 to fall after the Belgian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, after he started first in Spa, and George Russell also climbed up the leaderboard there, 0.3 for George Russell. Lando Norris, 0.5 after his Sunday save. He was looking pretty miserable there for most of Sunday afternoon in Belgium, and it eventually worked out. Esteban Ocon as Alpine bounced back, Lance Stroll as Aston Martin had a pretty strong weekend. And the bottom guys here, Alexander Albon jumped another 500,000, Kevin Magnussen another 500,000, Nico Hulkenberg got above the 4 million point threshold, and Zhou Guanyu as well came through. He's now up to 5.7 million, so kind of expensive for a backmarker. Can we still afford him? We are going to find out soon enough. Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz were the 2 guys that fell. Over here, constructor price changes rises. 8 constructors rose, 0 fell. So Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin all rose. Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Williams also rose, where McLaren did not rise. Maybe Oscar Piastri's DNF cost them another price rise, and some F1 fantasy managers some valuable budget. Dutch Grand Prix preview. So here we are, Circuit Zandvoort, 4.259 kilometers, 72 laps, 14 corners, 2 DRS zones, first Grand Prix 1952. Pretty fast track, should be a lot of fun to watch. The 2022 results here, Max Verstappen claimed pole, and the race was pretty interesting. There were a couple of safety cars there. Lewis Hamilton did look like he could potentially win his first race of 2022, but it did not happen. Mercedes double stacked. I think this is the race where Lewis went on mediums and George went on softs, and he just didn't have the tires to kind of keep up. Max Verstappen kind of running away with it there. Bottas and Yuki Tsunoda had tough days in Zandvoort last year as well, but not a ton to gain since, Mercedes were strong, but that's when they had the 0 pods. So we'll have to, as is always the case with this stuff, we'll just have to wait for FP1, 2, and 3 to see how the Silver Arrows are looking and all the other teams are looking, to be honest. The preview here, Friday is a typical Grand Prix race. Weekend, free practice 1 and 2 on Friday. Saturday is free practice 3, and then there's qualifying, which is at 3 p.m. local time. So that's 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern. And now I'm going to go to the weather. I'm going to try and see how this works. We're going to do some live weather over here. I'm going to share the screen. We are going to do this. We're going to go to Zandvoort. Let's see what we got going on here in Zandvoort. So Friday is going to be rather cloudy with a little rain in the morning, becoming breezy in the afternoon. 59% chance of precipitation. Saturday, some sunshine giving way to clouds with a little rain in the afternoon. Still above 50% chance of rain there. Sunday, windy with rain. So it's going to be another wet weekend for F1, which should be rather interesting. Let's get back to the presentation here. So that will be fun. So the things I want to talk about today is the main thing that most F1 managers are going to be trying to do in the back half of this year is get the budget to ride triple McLaren, triple Red Bull. And with the price changes that have come up since Canada, I kind of just wanted to look back and see what was who had the most price increases and maybe what kind of assets we can look towards to kind of try and get that budget up to eventually get the triple Red Bull, triple McLaren. I know some people already have it, so shout out to them because they are going to be crushing for the second half of the season if the end of the first half is anything to go by. So Lando Norris has had the biggest price jump here, as you can see. So Canada was after the Canadian Grand Prix. That's when the prices first rose like dramatically. And we all noticed a big difference between the 0.2 and 0.1 that went up. It was suddenly 0.5 million. People were going up 0.3, that kind of stuff. And now this is their price heading into the Dutch Grand Prix. That's the second column, and then the total jump there in the third column. So Albon has been I mean, probably the most dramatic riser just because he went from like super cheap asset to now he's kind of like in that medium price range with Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll. Like you really have to make room in your team to get Albon in there. Fernando Alonso was doing a lot of catching up from his first quarter of the season, but he's kind of fallen behind as the first half wore on and that Aston Martin seemed to stall in its development. Oscar Piastri also rose. Lance Stroll was kind of catching up, the same as Fernando Alonso. Perez has had the biggest price gain from the what you would call like the top three teams, 1.7 there. Hamilton 1.1, Leclerc 1.1. Zhou Guanyu has actually had a bigger price rise than Yuki Tsunoda at this point. I remember after the first race, that's when Yuki went up, and everyone was like, what the heck? It's time to get Zhou up there. But Zhou has actually jumped him in prices now after his strong weekend in Spa. Carlos Sainz looking sad here in the picture because he has only risen 0.1. Daniel Ricciardo, he's only been around for a couple of races, so he hasn't risen at all. And Max Verstappen kind of just ticking along there, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. They're not going to really rise him all that much. Logan Sargent went from cheapest asset into the game to now he's 4.5 along with Daniel Ricciardo. So certainly something to think about there. Maybe these assets here, like those top 5, 6 assets, Lando Norris, Alexander Albon, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez. A lot of us have these guys in our team. Is how many of these guys can we fit in? That's the main question. I currently have Albon, Piastri, and Perez out of there, and I would love to try and fit in more. Probably going to look at that in the transfers here. Another topic that needs to be talked about is there's not a ton of races left in the season, and a lot of us have many chips left to play. I have only used my extra DRS chip so far this year. So I'm looking at 5 chips in 10 races. So I just kind of jotted down some stuff. I did do a back chip strategy video earlier in the season. So go check that out if you want. This is kind of a more updated version. See how my thoughts have changed since then. Singapore, potentially wet, potentially a lot of DNFs. So that could be a good use of the no negative. Autopilot in Japan could be another wet race, as like can traditionally be quite crazy weather there in Japan. So autopilot may be there. Wild card in Qatar. Hopefully by that point we have a pretty good grasp on who is like where the cars stand for the remainder of the season. So I might just use it there with a sprint weekend. Final fix in Austin, if someone's had a bad qualifying, maybe one of the top 4 or 5 teams, they have a rough Friday, and then I can get all the sprint points for that week. Brazil for the limitless, just because Mercedes traditionally quite strong in Brazil. So that is maybe where you can shove in 2 Red Bull, 2 Mercedes, run or triple Red Bull, triple Mercedes, and then whichever asset is best out of like Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, like whoever you want there. And that might be the last big push for the limitless chip. Let me know what you think about that strategy in the comments below, what you guys would change, what you guys are thinking for your chips, how many you have left, when you're going to play them. Love to discuss some different strategies here as we kind of get into the back half of this season. And let's try sharing the screen one more time here as we go with the live transfers. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select this. There we go. Now, 1 second here. I'm going to do this. Kind of go back. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So right now, here's my team that I'm running. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Alexander Albon, Oscar Piastri, Logan Sargent. That's because I thought Williams would have a pretty strong weekend in Spa, which Albon did pretty well with all those overtakes. Let's just check him out here real quick. Yeah, 19 points, sprint overtake bonus. He was looking, first half of the race there, he was looking on to kind of maybe finish in the top 10. I was counting my lucky stars, but it was not meant to be for Alexander Albon. So like I was saying, everyone's trying to get triple Red Bull, triple McLaren. How do we do that? So I've only got 2 free transfers this week, 17 million. Lando in there. I've only got 2.6. That's probably not going to cut it, guys. So let's see. Sergio over here, get down to George. Only saves me 0.8, or yeah, not going to get there again. So put Sergio back in. So the only way I can get both of the McLaren drivers is if I kind of go down here. Oh, where are we going? Constructors, Aston Martin, and that leaves me just enough to get Nico Hülkenberg. But I'd also need to take a 4-point hit to do all of these 3 transfers. So that's not going to do. And also, I just value the McLaren constructor too much. So the other option here is to kind of get away from Albon. Monza is next week, so we should definitely think about the Williams because they were strong there last year. That's how Nick De Vries got his ride for 2023. But I could go Albon, and it leaves me 9 million here. So possibly if the Alpines look strong, I could just do 1 transfer. I could do Sargent to Gasly. That would be an option. I could also go up in price here, kind of get Alonso in here, and that would give me enough for Yuki Tsunoda. But the AlphaTauri, not the greatest car on the grid, so something to consider there. But if I go with Alonso's teammate, Lance Stroll, I can get all the way up to Zhou Guanyu and have some money in the bank here. Nice thing about here, this stuff is definitely going to rise. Will probably rise if they have a strong base. Will rise again. These 2, TBD. Perez should rise if he has another strong weekend. So that will be something to consider. But I might do something like this, save myself some money. Should like the McLarens really rise up and I kind of get caught out, that would still give me some cushion here. Assuming if like a Fernando Alonso did really well, that I could still possibly get there with the 1.7. So Alonso here really just depends how we're looking in the practices. So Nico had a great weekend. Sargent, probably not feeling good about Ricardo. So to be determined. But yeah, maybe like bringing back in an Aston Martin asset. I do like keeping Albon because he seems to be on the rise. He was one of the guys in that table that I showed that was rising the most. So Albon and Gasly, Albon, and I can't get up to Stroll, which is unfortunate. So yeah, we will see how that goes. That's kind of my transfer thoughts there for, oh, there we go. Add to stream, back to this. So that's the chip strategy there. So that was kind of my transfer strategy there as well. And here are the upcoming races, September 1st through 3rd. So we've got a double header here with Zandvoort this weekend, Monza next weekend, then a week off. Then we go another doubleheader with Singapore and Japan. So lots of F1 action coming our way over the next month and a bit. But hopefully that was a slightly comprehensive breakdown of the Dutch Grand Prix. What I'm thinking, chip strategy, just looking at the price rises, like how do we get to triple McLaren, triple Red Bull? It's just kind of one of those things that we have to live with if we didn't do it yet, and congrats to those that already have it. Just one more plug here. Yeah, follow me on Twitter at @youinoryouout. Like and subscribe to the channel, and have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.